In this lesson, we'll finish adding details to our map and focus on some of the more repetitive elements. Alright, so in the previous lesson, we started adding some details to our map. Now again, the amount of detail you add to your map is entirely up to you. In between lessons, I went ahead and built a couple other items and looking at sidewalks. Now that's one thing we really hadn't focused on. We can even add some sidewalks to our map. So, like I said, up to you. So what I want to focus on right now is some of the more repetitive elements. Now we talked about focusing on these parking areas. Maybe we could create a nice parking icon that we could reuse in several places on our map. We also talked about maybe indicating where some sewer lines are in these depth projections for the earth underneath our map. So let's go ahead and just work over here in this area. I'll zoom in nice and tight, and we're going to go ahead and build some of these repetitive elements. So I'm going to grab my rounded rectangle tool first. It's right here underneath your normal rectangle tool, and let's go ahead and just click and drag. Notice we're drawing a rounded rectangle. I'm going to actually need a square shape for this, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that fairly small here. And if the rounded rectangle tool is producing curved corners that maybe they're not curved enough or they have too much of a curve to them, you can actually come in and just click on your artboard anywhere, and you have control over the corner radius here. So I'm actually okay with these corners here. I'm going to go ahead and come over to my appearance panel, and let's go ahead and get rid of the stroke. And let's go ahead and assign a dark gray fill, maybe a 90%. So we've got the basic shape of our parking icon. I'm going to go ahead and grab my type tool now with the T keyboard shortcut and just draw a text frame here. And let's go ahead and input a P, a capital P here for parking. And let's go ahead and stick with Myriad Pro. We'll go ahead and change that to bold. And let's go ahead and change it to white as well. Let's just drag that over and make sure that's about the right size. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and create outlines out of this type by using the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-O. If you want to, you can actually come over here and choose Type, Create Outlines right there. And it's going to convert that type into an actual shape. So we'll just drag that around here, get that in the center of our object, and let's go ahead and group those together with a Control-G. Now, in order to reuse this graphic in several places on our map, we can actually just make copies of this, but that's not real efficient. We're actually creating additional anchor points when we could accomplish the same thing by using a symbol. Now, the symbols are all controlled in the Symbols panel. If you don't have that over here in your panel dock, you can find that under the Window drop-down and look for symbols. Now, creating a symbol is really easy. All you need to do is take this graphic and drag it into the Symbols panel, and you'll get this Symbol Options dialog. Now, first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is name the symbol. Let's call this parking icon. And now we've got a type of symbol. Now, these actually pertain to how the symbols move over into Adobe Flash. So we're not taking this into Flash, so let's go ahead and just say graphic for right now, and we're going to disregard these other options. Those are Flash related as well. So we'll just go ahead and hit OK on that, and you can see that our parking icon appears up here in the Symbols panel. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and run our top action on it using the F6 keyboard shortcut, converting it to the top plane so it'll fit nice and flush on top of our terrain here. I'm going to drag it up into position. Now, let's see what layer we've got that on. It's on our 3D buildings layer. Let's move that down to our terrain layer. Actually, let's undo that. Looks like we had more selected than we actually wanted to move, so I'm going to grab just that icon, drag that down to our terrain layer here. And great, that's in the right position. So now let's go ahead and make a copy of this. We can either make a copy of this symbol right here, or we could drag in another one and run our action on it. But we've already run the action here. So let's come over here and drag a copy of that. Now, if we look over in the appearance panel, it's still a symbol. So really, these aren't actual anchor points that we're creating. These are actually instances of this symbol. So we've got that symbol over here. Let's go ahead and drag another one. Maybe we put one over here, and maybe over here as well. So notice that symbol's actually kind of large for a couple of these areas. So what I might want to do is modify this symbol and shrink its size just a little bit. So that's actually really easy to do. Let's come over to our Symbols panel, and let's just double click on our symbol. Now we're going to go into isolation mode, and it's isolating just that parking icon. So we can actually come in and make changes to our symbol. I'm going to use the transform controls here, holding Shift and Alt to decrease the size of this to about half what it is. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and back out by hitting this arrow. And you can see that that change has actually been made on each of those instances of our symbols. So pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and just adjust the positioning of these just a little bit, and then we'll look at creating even another symbol. So let's just go and place these into position on these parking lots. Those other two look pretty good. So let's go ahead and look at addressing maybe the creating a symbol for these sewer lines that we were wanting to create. So that's actually pretty simple as well. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool with the keyboard shortcut L, and I'm just going to go ahead and hold shift and draw a circle right here. I'm doing this to sort of gauge the size in relation to the street that's next to it. So, you know, I think that looks pretty good. I'll just zoom in nice and tight on that here and move that up. Let's go ahead and come over to our appearance panel now, and let's go ahead and give it some colors for the stroke and the fill. So I'm going to come over, click, and let's go ahead and maybe add a dark gray for the stroke, maybe this gray right here. Let's give it a little darker fill color, maybe something like this. Alright, so that looks pretty good, but in order to accurately represent a sewer pipe, maybe we should do a little bit of water inside the pipe. So we can actually do that just by selecting the object and going into Draw Inside mode. Now we've used this in previous lessons, very useful, so we'll just go ahead and select Draw Inside mode from the tool panel right here, or we can use that keyboard shortcut Shift D, and notice we get those same dashed corner lines around this object. Now we're going to need to deselect our object because we don't want to color this object blue. So let's go ahead and deselect it. I'm going to get rid of my fill color, and I'm going to go ahead and select my stroke color here. Let's cancel the color picker, and let's come over again and look in our beach color library here and grab a nice watercolor. Let's apply this as our stroke color here, and then switch over to our blob brush with a Shift B. I'll go ahead and decrease the size of that using my open and close brackets so we can paint in some nice flowing water here. There we go, that looks pretty good. So we've created our icon here. Now we need to run our action on it. So let's go ahead and switch out of Draw Inside mode using Shift D. We'll select this graphic, and let's go ahead and run our top action on this using the F6 keyboard shortcut. Let's scratch that. We'll undo that 3 times. We actually need to run the right face option, which again, that was the keyboard shortcut F8. If you ever need to undo an action like that, just keep in mind there's 3 different things that each action is applying to an object. So you would actually need to undo 3 times. You know, and in saying that, well, let's go ahead and undo that again. 1, 2, 3. And before we run our action, let's go ahead and make a symbol. Let's go ahead and just drag this over into our symbols panel. Create another symbol, call this one sewer. Hit OK, and now we've got a symbol for the sewer pipes. So we can actually go ahead and run our action now, and then come in and drag in some copies. So let's go ahead and drag a copy over here, and that looks pretty good. Now we may need to come in and adjust the size of that symbol just a little bit. Let's come in, select our symbol, and Shift and Alt to decrease the size just a little here. And that looks pretty good. I'll reposition those here in just a moment, but you know, we've got some streets on this face here that we could probably add this same symbol to. So let's go ahead and pull this symbol over, and let's run our left face action on that. That's F5, and we'll drag another copy right over here. Alright, so we've created some nice sewer pipes here. You know, there's many other things that we could create symbols for. And another thing that would probably look pretty good on this map is maybe some trees. Now, trees are fairly unique, and, you know, it's really up to you if you want to have one specific stylized tree that represents all your trees, or if you want to hand paint some trees. So, you know, what I would probably do is I would probably hand paint maybe 3 or 4 different trees using the blob brush, and then make a few symbols based on those trees. Then I could repeat those around on our map. Let me just go ahead and create a tree for you and show you how I do it here. Let's go ahead and move over here off to the side on our artboard. I'm going to go ahead and grab my blob brush, and I tell you what, let's go ahead and pick some nice landscape colors here. Maybe we start with sort of a nice tree green, and just looking through here, let's go ahead and maybe grab this one for right now. We'll paint with that. Let me see what that looks like. I think that'll work fine. So increase the size of that just a little bit, lay down a base shape, and you know, the trees don't need to be anything fancy. They're just trees, right? So, and you know what, from this angle, I'll leave it up to you as to whether you think we'll see the trunk of the trees or not. So I'm just going to come in and paint some sort of blob-like shapes here for our trees. You know, and you can get as small and as detailed as you want to as far as the leaves go. So let's go ahead and stop right there for right now. And what I'll probably do at this point is go into Draw Inside mode for our object again. Shift D twice and deselect it, and let's grab our blob brush again and select a little darker color. Maybe this is going to be for the shadow in the tree, really defining some of the bulbous areas. So maybe we could come in here and just paint in some shadows, sort of like that. So really, the style and the design of your trees is, depending on really probably what style you've chosen to do your map in. So, this is just the type of tree that I'm choosing, but maybe you want to do something a little more stylized, a little more, a little less unique. So, again, totally up to you as to what type of trees you'd put in. So this is just one way of doing a tree. We'll just undo that. Maybe there's a shadow here. Alright, so that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and switch out of draw on side mode. Let's go ahead and position this tree somewhere on our map. Let's see, where would this look good? Maybe we want to put this tree on this median right here. Place it right there just like so. And I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and make a symbol out of that. We'll just drag that over to our symbols panel. Call this one Tree 1. And hit OK. And now we've made a symbol that we can reuse around our map and not create any additional anchor points, and therefore not increase the size of our file anymore. Alright, now I think that's pretty much the extent of the detail that I'm actually going to add to our map. So we've showed you several different ways here to create a variety of different details, and obviously there's no way to show you every single detail, and just look at each specific detail that you want to create as its own problem that you can address using isometric projection. So hopefully throughout these lessons you've seen how we can use this different drawing system, isometric projection, to create a fun, interesting, stylized map. Now, I'd like to encourage you at this point, really have some fun. Spend some time developing some interesting details in your map and see what type of map you can come up with.